Everyone faces hard choices. Ambitious people in particular feel the weight of those choices, and that can cause them to get stuck. I'm going to present a decision-making framework that actually makes the hardest choices the easiest choices. So much so that the hardest part is actually going to be having the courage to execute. Here's the logical chain. So you've got hard goals lead to massive trade-offs, which lead to fear of missing out on the opportunity cost of whatever that was, which leads to analysis paralysis. This is probably a common experience for ambitious people in particular. Okay, so the main problem with trying to make decisions without a logical framework is that we fall for all of these biases. So we instinctively think short term. We instinctively try to avoid loss. And we instinctively think that negative events are more impactful than positive events. Obviously, there's many more biases. These are the main ones that are showing up around these big decisions that can really cause us to make a decision we regret later, which is what we're trying to avoid. So we want to use a logical decision-making framework to fall for as few as possible. Okay, so what is the decision-making framework? It's called the regret minimization framework. You might have heard of it. It's very popular. It was popularized by Jeff Bezos. And it just makes intuitive sense to me personally as the best decision-making framework to use, because what matters more than you looking back on your life with perfect hindsight? So you project yourself out to your old age self, 80 years old, whatever, and you think about the different scenarios of how you're going to feel whether you made decision A or decision B. Okay, so that's what the method is. So if we're going to be doing this where we're projecting ourselves forward to our future selves and then thinking about what the best possible choice would be, it's probably helpful to understand how exactly our future selves are going to be feeling. And we might as well be informed by the learnings and experience of others. So this palliative care worker interviewed many people on their deathbeds, and the biggest learning, the biggest regret was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And that hits pretty hard. I think the main takeaway there is that it's counterintuitive. Counterintuitive, it's countercultural. These decisions are not going to be obvious. A decision-making framework is really going to help. For this second thing, it's very specific. So it says, in the short term, we regret more the things that we did. That's areas of commission. But in the long term, we regret more the things we didn't do. Yeah. Okay, so that's telling us do things. So have a bias for doing things. Since this method was inspired by Jeff Bezos, I'm going to show you his words.
Decision to leave Wall Street and do this was, it'll sound geeky to you, but it was a regret minimization framework. So this is how I actually made the decision.
Sort of, if I understand it, if I can translate that into English I can deal with, does that mean I want to live my life so that in a few decades from now I'm not going to regret it?
That's exactly right. I want to have lived my life in such a way that when I'm 80 years old, I've minimized the number of regrets that I have. And I think actually a lot of people do that. I think they, even if they don't, call it something as dorky as regret minimization framework, they behave that way anyway. They think that way.
Okay, so yeah, very in line with what I've been saying, and it makes a lot of intuitive sense, I think. Okay, so for Jeff Bezos deciding to start Amazon, what we want to think about is our utility values here. That's basically just a fancy way of saying, how would you feel in that scenario, having made that decision, scale of 1 to 100. So let's say he decides to stay at his cushy job, making a lot of money, and the internet fails. It's probably going to feel pretty good that he didn't start Amazon. Let's say 80. Living a good life. Scenario B, internet succeeds, and he stays at his job. Well, he's going to feel the hurt that he didn't start Amazon there. He's going to have the same cushy job, but it's not going to be the same inside, is it? So let's say he's a 50. Okay, decision 2. He starts Amazon and the internet fails. So not great, right? But he probably still feels okay having a crack. So let's say 50 as well. And then decides to start Amazon, internet succeeds. I mean, this has got to be like 100 or 90. Let's say 90 just to be generous. So there we've got how we're going to feel in each scenario. Now we want to calculate the regret. The regret is just for each scenario, what is the difference between what you did and the best alternative in that scenario. So for this one, the best alternative in this column was 80. So the best thing to do would have been to stay at the job. You did stay at the job, so the difference is 0 and you have no regret. If you started Amazon, the best thing you could have done would have been staying at your job, but you didn't. So you have a 30 regret. Now, let's say you decided to stay at your job, but the internet succeeds. The best thing you could have done would have been starting Amazon. And you would have felt like a 90, but you feel like a 50. So you've got a 40 regret. And in this box here, you could have decided to stay at Amazon, and you did, so you have no regret. So now we've got our regret values here. Just follow the template. What's the maximum regret for each decision? So this is a 0, that's the minimum regret. The maximum is 40. And in this one, the maximum is 30. And then you want to choose the lowest maximum regret. So 30 is lower than 40. That leads us to start Amazon. Amazing. So Jeff Bezos did this intuitively, probably, we don't know. Okay, well, that was the framework. I hope that was helpful for you. And I really hope that you have the courage to execute on it. Now that you're making the right decisions, sometimes the hardest thing is actually having the courage to follow through. But now that you are, if you want a relentless system for executing, please consider watching my video on Getting Things Done method.